A surprise mobile Sonic game that's being compared to the adventure titles by publications was definitely not on my bingo card for 2023. Yet here we are. Sonic Dream Team was announced shortly after the release of Sonic Superstars, and coming from the same team responsible for Sonic Dash, this definitely took everyone by surprise. But the real implication of this game simply existing is like a bomb going off in the millennial's mind repeatedly, because this game is pointing to something insane coming shortly afterwards. Hey beautiful humans, I'm RidersDX, and today I'm going to let myself be a little delusional because I firmly believe that Sonic Dream Team is a sign of something very great to come. But before we get to it, y'all know I love to set a scene. Put up the stage props, smell the air. Anyway, Sonic Dream Team is a 3D platformer coming exclusively to Apple Arcade, which absolutely does not make me want to do very bad things. It sports 12 zones and has 6 playable characters: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Cream, Rouge, whom each fall into one of 3 categories: speed, flight, and whatever Knuckles and Rouge are considered. Sound familiar yet? And as you can see from this gameplay, the levels are large 3D environments that seem to value slower exploration in contrast to the highly encouraged linearity of the Boost games. Now tell me why I immediately thought of Sonic Adventure when I saw this gameplay. I know the characters are boosting at points in the levels, but other than that, this is practically a brand new adventure style title, including the multiple playable characters. Like, my childhood self is literally screaming. This gameplay is just harkening me back to the days of freely roaming through Emerald Coast, speeding through the loop-de-loops, running up the mountains, annoying the hell out of a killer whale. Except that this is a new game coming out this year, and it's on Apple Arcade. I will get over that one day. If you'd asked me if we were going to get an adventure style game a few years ago, I would have definitely said yes. We were still coming off the hype of Sonic Mania and how nostalgia for that era was slowly overstaying its welcome. We also had gotten Team Sonic Racing recently, which fed into the nostalgia for the adventure area significantly, with tons of tracks from those games and also music from the same producers. But then we didn't get that, or even an adventure remake in the coming years. Instead, we got Sonic Frontiers, which was an evolution of the Boost formula that took a lot of cues from not just the adventure games, but also open world games at large, creating something very new for Sonic. We also got Sonic Superstars afterwards, and I guess in my mind, Sega just wasn't going to revisit the adventure formula the same way that they'd done with the classic formula. I did sort of reason why in my head, despite how much I personally loved the adventure formula, along with a whole subsection of fans, it wasn't massively critically acclaimed like the classic games were. There is still so much discourse on whether these games were actually good, and I've been in this community for way too long to keep entertaining those arguments. My ultimate stance is that despite the integral design flaws to these games that make it hard for them to hold up in this day and age, it doesn't change the fact that these games did so much to transform Sonic into a great 3D experience, along with how it was able to establish so much lore that would make lifelong fans. Best believe I was seated for months when I saw the ending of Sonic Adventure 2 unfold before my very eyes. Talk about a scarring childhood experience. But at the same time, it makes no sense why Sega wouldn't at least cash in on the nostalgia of this era directly, seeing it work so well with Sonic Mania. In fact, so many companies around Sega were creating remakes of their own games from around this time. Crash Insane Trilogy, Spiral Reignited Trilogy, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, and now even Mario is doing so, with the recent announcement of the Thousand Year Door remake. Like, come on, what's it gonna take for them to finally give us big fishing and glorious HD? While the question of a remake ever happening remains as big of a question as ever, the pure existence of Sonic Dream Team as a title that's already been heavily compared to adventure games by multiple publications remains an interesting scenario nonetheless. I feel like Sega just continues to draw us crumbs of an adventure formula revival, dating all the way back to Team Sonic Racing, because ever since that game we've had Sonic Speed Simulator, a robots game with very adventure-like gameplay, a narrative akin to the adventure titles and Frontiers, and now Sonic Dream Team. Sega is literally doing everything but make a full-fledged adventure game or remake, and it is driving me insane. But on the positive side, it does denote to me that Sega is aware of the nostalgia hype behind adventure games and seems to be at least open to continuing to bring it back in whichever ways they decide. If I recall correctly, Iizuka even at one point mentioned being interested in remaking the adventure games, so clearly they are aware of the proposition. But at this point, I have no clue what Sega is going to do. They seem very determined for Sonic to take over the world at this point with all these games, movies, a TV show, merch galore. Sonic is at a saturation level I haven't seen from him in a long time. And part of me wonders if they'd rather just take the ideas of adventure games that they deemed were good and just implement those into their future titles. A game like Sonic Dream Team certainly would echo that theory. What's extremely interesting about this game though is that it is supposedly taking inspiration from Super Mario Sunshine and Tony Hawk games. That just sounds like a fan game in all honesty, but further supports the theory that Sega just wants to take the best parts of adventure games and continue blending them in with modern mechanics. I will say though, if there is a time to remake the adventure games, it is this upcoming year, and there is one glaring reason for that, and his name is Shadow the Hedgehog. The third Sonic movie is slated to come out later in 2024 and will reintroduce Shadow to the general audience as the ultimate Sonic rival. And what sort of game do you think would be perfect to capitalize on that hype? Now, I will say, while it would be completely unhinged for Sega to skip over the original adventure and go straight to remaking Adventure 2, it's not something I would put past them. This is the same company that greenlit the original Shadow the Hedgehog after all. I would not put anything past this logo. Of course, there is a possibility that they would remake both games and bundle them together, but considering we don't even have remasters, I'm not holding my breath. But launching an Adventure 2 remake close to the movie's release would be the ultimate strategy to have a great financial year for Sonic game-wise, and also would be an easier project to take on rather than trying to make a whole new game in time for the movie's launch, especially when it'd be immediately compared to a juggernaut like Frontiers, which needed all the time in the world to come out. I just think it's too obvious of an idea the more you think about it. I mean, an adventure remake was always a good idea, but a remake close to the debut of Shadow in the movie franchise? Like, come on! They're already preparing for it merch-wise. Did you see the Shadow the Hedgehog Lego sets? They know this is a golden opportunity to truly capitalize on Shadow, and I just can't think of a better way game-wise to cash in on this hype. I feel like overall, Sonic Dream Team is a very positive, if puzzling sign of what's to come next. Clearly, Sega knows the value of the adventure formula, and aren't very shy from directly borrowing from those games with newer titles. But will we ever see a full-blown adventure-esque game in the future? That's a loaded question I'd have to get into for another day. But I will say, all the stars are aligning for some heavily adventures-inspired thing to come soon that's more than just a Apple Arcade exclusive. Seriously, just why? I'm going to place my bets on some sort of Adventure 2 related title. A remaster would be relatively easy to do, but a remake, that would reap the profits insanely well. I know I pre-ordered it day one. It doesn't matter if they had chimpanzees develop it, I would still give away my money. But let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know what you think of Sonic Dream Team means for the franchise going forward, and let me know what sort of games you hope to see from Sonic in the future. If y'all like videos like this, subscribe to my channel for more videos on this topic in the future, because I will never stop talking about adventure games. Never have and never will. And Sonic is just chronically in my brain for the rest of my life, and I love every single moment of it. But alright y'all, thank you so much. This is Riders, riding out.